Okay, so we did before the break. We learned all about, or relearned, or got a review of the Java programming language, and so that'll help you get started on your assignments here. And just once again, there are well right now up on the YouTube playlist there is a screencast all about JUnit. So here again, similarly, me talking through slides, and I'll get the one for Maven posted in the next couple of days. Think of it this way: that's like another hour and a half of lecture that I saved you from tonight. So here again, there's a lot of content. I think there's lots of that you need to know, and you can use as a reference. But I want to spend our precious time together doing more interesting interactive things. Okay. So there are a couple of handouts that I want to go over now. I want to spend a few minutes doing this. The first thing I want to discuss is your first project. So in this project, you're going to begin building your appointment book application that you'll be working with over the rest of the course. What I want you to do is create the fundamental appointment and appointment book classes that will form the foundation of the rest of your project. And why are we doing this? Well, so that you get experience working with classes that you do not write and perform some more complex command line parsing than they're used to. So I have a package called edupdxcs410j, which has two abstract classes, abstract appointment and abstract appointment book. What I want you to do for this project is to write two concrete classes that are in your package, so edupdxcs410j, your login ID package. Appointment, which extends abstract appointment, and appointment book, which extends abstract appointment book. And these are concrete classes, which means they must implement all of the abstract methods of the superclass. An appointment book has properties like an owner, it can consist of multiple appointments, and an appointment has a description like have lunch with Lisa or whatever. It begins at a given time and ends at a given time. I think that footnote number 3 is oh yeah, it's okay for your program to accept dates and times that have already occurred. Note that for this assignment, you can ignore the get begin time and get end time methods. You'll be using them in a later project. So I want you to create an appointment book class, an appointment class, and also a project 1 class, which has the main method that drives the program. And what does it do? It creates an appointment book, an appointment as specified on the command line, adds the appointment book to the appointment, adds the appointment to the appointment book, and then optionally prints out a description of the appointment by invoking the toString method. And note that the toString method is inherited from abstract appointment, and you don't need to do anything. You don't need to overwrite it. You don't need to change it. The command line syntax for the program is the following. You invoke the main method, so you say Java, of course, set the class path and everything. edupdxcs410j, your login ID, project 1, and then there are optional arguments followed by, optional options followed by required arguments. So the required arguments are the owner, who's the person that owns the appointment book, the description of the appointment, the begin time and the end time of the appointment, and then they have the following format: month, date, year, and 24-hour time. There are 2 options. There's a print option, which prints the description of the new appointment that was just added, and then a readme that prints the readme, and in a few minutes we'll talk about what the readme is all about. So now I fully admit this should be a pretty straightforward little program, and so really the purpose of this program is to get you used to working with Java and the Java environment, and we'll see Maven and things like that. The program itself, probably not so exciting. Don't worry, the exciting programs are going to come later. Really, this is just to get your footing with Java. Yeah.
I'm just a little confused. What does it mean you may ignore begin time and end time of those methods in the abstract classes?
Yes, methods in the abstract classes. They are not abstract methods. It's just that they, I think, return null right now. For this, you don't need to do anything for this assignment. In a later assignment, you'll override them to return something more interesting.
So don't we still have to write something?
Nope. No. If it was abstract, that would be. If the method itself was abstract, you would have to override it. But it is not an abstract method. Yeah. Well, I can show you the source code. Whatever. Note that if you have multi-word arguments such as the name of the owner, you should delimit them on the command line with double quotes. But that the dates and the times are not quoted. They are two separate command line arguments. Just a little bit of specification there. Error handling. Do something graceful when a reasonable error condition occurs. So, for instance, something's missing from the command line, or you've got extra stuff on the command line, or the format of the date or time is incorrect, or the description is empty, things like that. Excuse me. So if you want to go, if you're entirely using the command line, you can find the jar file for the edupdxcs410j package on the Unix file systems in uwitlock jar cs410 jar. And what I want you to submit is the project 1 source code, the appointment.java, and the appointmentbook.java using the submit program, which we'll talk about in a minute. So, but to get you started with the Maven project, there's something called a Maven Archetype. Now, I go into much more detail about this, about what a Maven Archetype is in the Maven lecture, which will be posted online later. But suffice it to say, what the Maven Archetype does is it creates a skeleton project, a template project. I mean, the Maven Archetype is a template that a template for a Maven project, which when you say archetype generate, it will go off and create a skeleton framework for you to build your project in. And since I've got you all here, I'll just walk you through this process. And by the way, there is a, is that readable? Do you see the, can you guys see the command window okay? Terminal okay? Bigger? Yes? There, yeah, bigger now? Okay. Yeah, bigger. No, you can call it bigger. That's nice. So I'll just center it. Okay. It's huge. Okay. So what am I going to do? So there's this big ugly command line. I'm going to copy it and paste it right into here. So what am I doing? I'm using the Maven command line utility, which you can learn about in the lecture, to go off and do something. And oh my gosh, it got an exception. So I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to see what's wrong. And it says resource does not exist exception. This file, this is URL, it wasn't found. Well, as it turns out, the tilde that you cut and paste from PDF isn't the right tilde for the command line, so I'm going to Control C out of that. I'm going to replace it with the right tilde. Ugly, big old ugly tilde, yeah, who knew? And it's going to be much happier. What I just told Maven to do is go out to my website and look for all of the various archetypes, the project templates that are out there. And I wanted to use the one that's called appointment book. Oops. Gosh. Appointment book archetype. Is this the one you're looking for? The answer is yes. So I will use project number 1. So it's gone off and it's gone and downloaded some things downloaded the archetype. It's going to ask me for my group ID. So the group ID is basically the organization that's producing this Maven project. In this case, it's going to be edupdx cs410j.whitlock because it's my project. The artifact ID is going to be appointment book. And the version, sure, 1.0 snapshot, that's totally cool. My package, I'll use it the same. This is the Java package. It's going to be the same as the group ID. Hit return. It asks me to verify, is all the stuff correct? It is. And it blows up because I did this before and didn't clean up after myself. Bad Dave. Live coding is messy. So, that's okay. Now you get to see it twice. Group ID, edu, pdx, cs410j, artifact ID. There we go, much happier now. And so what's created, is something called a pom.xml, which describes your Maven project. Here again, I go into gory detail about it in the lecture. And it also gives me a source directory with a very simple source file, and also a automatically generated unit test with some simple unit tests there. So I've got my Maven project, and I can build my Maven project by saying Maven package. Maven package will compile my source code, will run my unit tests, and build what's called an executable jar. And so it was successful. And so now when I want to run my program, I execute this command line, and it says missing command line arguments, which tells me that it's gotten to my main method. I can also go and create an IntelliJ project for my Maven project by using Maven idea. And now I can open up the appointment book.ipr. And by the way, I go into this, again, I'll ignore this for the time being. This is all, I do a very similar thing to what I just did here, much slower methodically, for the student project in one of the screencasts. So you can go see something very similar to this there. And now here I am in IntelliJ, and I can go find my project 1 class. I can look at the command line and what it does, and here basically all it does, it references this class, but then it just prints out missing command line arguments. And oh look, if you give it program arguments, oops, sorry, I'm still getting used to the multi-touch mouse thing here. If I go and I give it some command line arguments like 1, 2, 3, it'll print out missing command line arguments and then 1, 2, 3. Actually, I don't want to print out missing. Okay, so I want to say if args.length equals 0, then print missing command line arguments. Otherwise, print them all out. Induce system exit of 1. So I made that change. I do Maven package again to rebuild everything. That rebuilt everything. I'm going to execute my command again, and now it doesn't print out the missing command line options, command line arguments. That was really quick, and the reason I showed it to you was not to teach you how to use Maven, but to give you an idea of what's possible with Maven. And so then, but what I do expect you to do then is to go look at the screencasts that are up on the YouTube channel to get some more detailed background, and then if you ask questions, please pose them to the community. Cool. So anyway, that's what your Project 1 is all about. It's really getting used to Java and getting used to this tool set by using a very simple program. Yes?
Maybe I missed this when you said it, but on the grade it says 6 for code, 1 for POA.
I will get to the POA. POA is a plan attack. I'll be talking about it momentarily. Okay. Actually, just do that right now. Okay. Any other questions on Project 1? It is due, it is due July 10th, 2 weeks from tonight. Okay. Documentation. So I'm a big fan of documenting your code. I'm a big fan of you guys documenting your code. As you start out as software engineers, as you learn, from my own experience and from others that I've seen, being able to articulate and describe what you're doing is super important. And so there are a couple of ways that I want you to document what it is you're doing. The first is something called a plan of attack, a POA. And starting with Project 1, I want you to submit a plan of attack for each of your projects. A POA is just a couple paragraphs explaining to me what you're going to do for your project. So this is text, and I don't want some big old Word document. I don't want a PowerPoint. I don't want code. I want paragraphs. There's a couple that describe how you're going to implement your project. The real reason I want you to do this is so that you will think about your code before you start writing it, and Also, the POA is due 3 days before the project is due, which is Sunday night. Is also a mechanism that I use to, well, honestly, force you to start working on your project at least 3 days before it's due. So please send me an email with your POA and put POA in the subject because I do filter everything out, which means that if you have an important email for me, don't put the letters POA in it. And late days do not apply to the POA. Any questions on that? Okay. I also want you to turn your hand off. No, I also want you to have Javadoc comments in your source code, and then also a README option to your programs. So as I talked about, there are those documentation style comments that you can use to generate Javadocs, and I want you to take advantage of them. I want you to learn. It's all part of learning the language, really, is learning the tools to document your code, document your APIs. And so what I do is, in addition to running your command line and executing it, I also will look at your documentation. And I reserve the right to deduct points from your grade if I don't feel that your code is well enough documented. So what I expect is that every class and method have a Javadoc comment that describes what it does. And there's a link off to Oracle's site that will tell you more about Javadoc. I'd also like you to take a read through the standard Java coding conventions so that your code looks like other people's Java code, so you can start understanding and looking at that. And finally, the last way I'd like you to document what you're doing is have a README option to your project that prints out a brief, concise, and nicely formatted textual description of what your project does. This is not the same as the POA. The POA is how it does it. The README is what it does. When basically the README it says the README prints out the README text and then exits the program. That's it. So when the README switch is specified, your program shouldn't do any other work, including error checking or command line parsing or whatever. Just prints the README and exit. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you've gone through and you've written all your code, and now you've documented all your code, and now here's how you submit all your code. So way back in the day, I wanted to teach myself about the Java Mail API, which is the Java API for sending email. And so what I did is I wrote a program that's used to submit the source code for your projects to the grader. And by the grader, I mean the grader account at PSU. We don't have a TA in the class, it's just me. And the name of that program is edupdxcs1nj.grader.submit. And it's going to, you give it information such as your username, what files that you want to submit, and it creates a jar file with all that stuff and mails it off to the TA. And so the required arguments are the name of the project, who you are, your Unix login ID, your email address, and then one or more source files that you want to submit. And note that you can submit, actually, I want you to submit multiple files per invocation of the submit program. There's also some like debugging things. If you want to have a comment saying, "Oh, hey, this is not complete," or something that doesn't work, you can do that, but it's not required. So let's say I had a project 0.java that I wanted to submit. I would run the command line thusly from the Unix machines, which is where that file lives, and it goes off and and will take your project 0.java and it emails it off to me. And then of course it'll prompt you for a little verification, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to work pretty well, and it'll also send you an email saying, here's what was sent, so that you know when it was sent. A couple things to note. You can only submit Java source code, stuff ending in .java. I don't want your class files. I'll compile them myself. So just send me the source code. It also enforces that your code is in a directory structure that matches the standard conventions, so edu, pdx, cs410j, your login ID. And if you use the Maven archetype, it'll do this for you. Please do not attempt to submit any of my code back to me. It's smart enough to know what's my code and what's your code, and so it'll complain because I don't want my code. And more importantly, I don't want you shouldn't be modifying my code, right? My code just comes to you as class files. Even though you can see my source code, I don't want you modifying my. I can't have you modifying my source code. Please submit all of the files required for your project. So in subsequent projects, you might not need to modify your appointment book and appointment classes. I still want you to submit that all the code anyway. I've just had too many students that, oh yeah, I didn't modify that, and they did, and things don't compile, and there's all this back and forth, and it's just a real pain. So just always submit all of your code. Note that it's okay to submit multiple times before the due date. However, I'm only going to grade your most recent submission, and please be mindful of my time. It does take me a little bit to extract it from the email and then unzip it and grade it and everything like that. So yes, of course, if you submit and then like 5 minutes later realize that you found a bug and fix it and stuff, okay, but don't submit it like every 30 seconds for a month because that would be bad. Blah 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 blah. Oh yeah, right. I know. So there's a submission. There's a timestamp on each submission. It's an email sent to me, so I know when you ran the program. So this is how I figure out whether or not work is late. And if you're having problems submitting, which no one has had in a very long time, but it's possible that things have changed, there are some options that you can try. And if you're, of course, having problems, please reach out to me, and I'll get them fixed because this workflow makes my life a lot easier. Okay, any questions on that? Okay. Oh yeah, so exciting. And finally, Java cones. This is another assignment that you've got a couple of weeks to work on. So a koan is a teaching question that's used in Buddhist discourse. And the whole idea is that it's something that you should think of. It's one of those sounds of one hand clapping, that type of thing. In programming, there are a bunch of little programming problems that people have called koans that are really meant to teach you a specific lesson about the language, about something about Java. And so I went out and I found some Java koans. I found they're actually a really good way to learn the language, and I turned them into an assignment for you guys. So this is outside of your regular project work, but I think it's something that you can do in the background to help understand some of the subtleties of working with Java. So I have a Maven Archetype for the koans, and so copy and paste this big old thing, fix the tilde, run generate. It will it'll create a it'll create a koans directory, and you can go from there. So actually, and what I'll do next week, so I want you to start on this project this week, but next week during class, we can start working through some of these as a group so you can get the gist of what koans are like. And then just do Maven stuff. So actually, I want to, you know what, I lied. I'm going to show them to you really quick. I won't do that many of them, but yeah, wait. Let it blow up. Oh, good. Lots of things it doesn't like. Fix the tilde. Fix the group ID. Okay, that's all good. Maven idea. Open koans IPR. Ignore that. Okay, so it'd be kind of nice if I had split screen. I was going to go back and forth. you run, there's a little Java program that you can run by using the the exec plugin in Maven. So this runs a little program, and it's sort of this is the sage telling you what to do. So it's like, go open this file, and there should be a method starting with @Cohen called find about Cohen's file. Look within it for your first lesson. Once you have solved that, save the file and check back for your next lesson. So I'm looking for a file called aboutcones.java. I can do Command-Shift-N to search for a file in, really? Oh, that's interesting. Should have found it. Oh, I didn't find it. Okay. Okay. And so here's a little. Here's an example. So this cone is all about understanding how to work with cones. So here's find about Cohen's file, and it is saying, well, what was it doing? It's just calling fail, which is a lot like the JUnit fail in that this Cohen is bad. This Cohen doesn't work. And so I can fix it by doing what? By deleting that line. Okay, that's exactly what it's telling me to do. Okay, IntelliJ automatically saves. So now when I go back to the terminal, it has saved that file and it's reloaded the next cone. And by the way, it tells you the progress. So you have done 1 of 193 cones. So now it's saying, okay, a cone is considered complete when it no longer throws an exception. Often there is more than one way to solve a cone, but only one correct way. This is often hinted at within the cone itself, etc., etc. Ponder what's going on with definition of cone complete method. Okay, so take a minute. You guys, I think you can see that. Okay, what's wrong with this cone? Actually, this is a Boolean. It's okay. Okay, and because you're setting it to false, what is happening?
It's calling the fail.
Okay, so what could I do to make this cone pass? That's true.
Is fail a function, or is that just supposed to be garbage that gets an error?
No, well, remember, this is runtime stuff, not compile time stuff. So yeah, it's a function that you can call. I guess I don't have the source code there, but whatever. But yeah. Okay, so this guy, hey, I've done 2 out of 193. Now I'm on about assertions. Anyway, well, maybe we should just go through this a little bit more. Okay, so well, I guess it has a nice little thing. So the whole idea is that these cones have assertions which basically say, oh, this particular thing is ought to be true. And it uses these little 2 underscores to mean something that should be replaced with something else. So, okay, assert true. We want this to be true. What should we replace the 2 dashes with? Really? Didn't like really. Actually, it should be true, really. Yeah. Yes, true. How about this? Okay. Assert null.
Not null.
Okay, like what?
Can you just say object?
It's a new object. Why is it underlined? Okay, let's see how we're doing. Let's go back here. It's compiled a bunch of stuff. 6 out of 3. Okay. Assert equals using expression method. Okay. So what do we need to do to get this thing passing? Sorry, what? Okay. Better failure method. Oops. Okay, you can add your own message to an assert method to provide more information if it's relevant. Well, this guy is just. Oops, wait a second, let me. Yeah. So assert equals can have a little description there. So what should the dash bash be? Redo. Okay, that do. Making more progress. Okay. Object may be equal to another object, but it will never be the same as the other object. Okay, so what do we need to do here? Sorry, what?
Clone? Use clone method.
Yeah, give it a try. Clone of what? Oops. No, it's okay. So it cannot be cloned. Integer cannot be cloned. Yep, good. Now we can see that two references to the same object is not the same as two references to equal objects. So not the same. So if we want them to not be the same, what should we change? Okay, such as and now we're on to something else about equality. So anyway, that's the way you work with the cones. Is that there's like a little 4 or 5 line method to sort of figure out what's going on, and actually I found them to be a pretty good way to explore the language and get used to it. So I would like you to work through these over the next couple of weeks. This assignment is due on July 24th. So you've got, what is that, a month?
Yeah.
Like 4 weeks to work on that. My experience, though, is that, during this time, you'll also have other projects to work on. So, I say do this one in parallel with Project 1. We'll also be working through it here in class together, and you'll have a chance to answer it. So if you want to get a head start on it, it'll help you during class time, too. So those are 4 handouts, and I think that gives you everything that you need to know about your projects. Okay. I think that's all I've got for tonight. It's getting pretty late. Do you guys have any other questions for me about class?
Just you said earlier that
Yep.
you have the videos for setting up IntelliJ and everything.
Yes.
And will that help me out with Project 1, like, for example, getting the package and everything? Does it cover all that?
I would say it shows you, like, here's the website that you go to get the package. I didn't actually go through and say, here's how you install it. It should be all documented, but I think it should get you started. And if not, post something on the community, the Google Plus community.
How do we know when to watch which videos?
I'll tell you.
Okay.
And actually, also the videos will. So I haven't done it yet. Once I get more of the videos underway, I'll put links to them up here so you sort of know the order. But it's a very good question. I'll let you know. And
So we should do the Maven, so should we do the J unit one before the next lecture?
yes,
Maven, J unit.
yep. And then also the core API. I'll get that up before this weekend because it's kind of long. And so yeah. Okay. So anyway, welcome to Advanced Java Java programming here at Portland State. I'm looking forward to this term. Have a great week. I will see you next time.